Hey guys, it's Han, and today we have my Tamiya Konghead. I recently finished building this, and I was really excited to build it. It was a very enjoyable build, and I really like how this thing turned out. Now, this is, of course, the G6-01 chassis, which I've had a few times before. I originally had the King Yellow, which I did a full review on. I did really enjoy the build of my King Yellow and really enjoyed driving my King Yellow. But I never really was a fan of the look of it after I had it built. Wasn't really sure what to do with it. But recently, I had a reawakened kind of fixation on the G6-01. And I really like the Konghead because the body fits the chassis a little bit better than the school bus body does. And then I also really like my Volvo A60H that I recently picked up as well, which is right here. And this body also fits the six-wheeled style a little bit better than the King Yellow or the Dynahead does. So I think looks-wise, the Konghead looks much better and looks a lot cooler than the King Yellow. King Yellow, I think, is more of a novelty than this. And the extra detail parts here look really cool. I usually am not a big fan. I used to absolutely loathe anything chrome, but I don't know why, but the older I get and something about me inside, I guess, is changing. But I've kind of grown to kind of appreciate small amounts of silver and chrome parts. I think it adds to kind of the shininess and the coolness of the vehicle. So if I had built this maybe even like a year ago, I probably would have painted the grille black, probably would have painted all of these black. But I think it looks pretty good with the silver grille and the chromed detail parts. So the body is surprisingly difficult to paint. Even though it's a pretty simple paint scheme, it just looks like a single color with the factory decals on it. But because this front grille here, this little, I think that's a fuel tank, whatever that is, on the side here, this rear roll bar area, this rear bed area here, those are all separately masked off, different paint colors. Also, you have to mask off the windows. So there's surprisingly deceivingly a lot of masking you have to do, and the areas you mask aren't easy places to mask, unlike the windows, because they're on very small areas. They're also very rounded and has a lot of curves and stuff to it. So a little bit annoying to mask off. So I was originally not planning on using the stock decals, and I was gonna do a more intricate paint scheme. But I really got tired of masking it as I was painting it, so I ended up just painting it just basically one body color and slapping the decals on it. But I think it turned out pretty well, and I quite like the I like the look of the decals, so I'm not upset about that in any way. The box art is a metallic blue. This, I don't know how it shows up on camera, but this is not actually box art. This is painted in a Duratrax teal blue, which I was hoping for it to be more teal, but it kind of turned out more baby blue, sky blue kind of color. So it still looks pretty similar to box art, but I guess different enough for me. So, it's whatever. I think it still looks really good, and I'm still really happy with how it turned out. Most of the decals are placed in the factory locations. Other than a couple stuff, I overlaid the 6x6 here with the silver version. Originally that text is yellow. I added some stickers to the back, which I think looks really nice, especially this white Tamiya one right here. I think that looks really cool. And most of the decals were really easy to place. The only thing I would give tips on is some of the curved areas here, like the fenders, and especially this, whatever this is called. This area right here, I would recommend you take a heat gun or a lighter, kind of heat up the decal a little bit and mold it into the curves, because otherwise it's going to peel up and it's going to be really annoying. So that's a little tip for getting the Tamiya decals onto rounded surfaces. This area is also actually two separate decals. It's a strip here and a strip down here. So you have to kind of line them up properly in order it to look okay. So That's something I would recommend. What I'll recommend you do is kind of place one first and then kind of match up the other one to match as best as possible. So, lovely body, deceivingly difficult to make look nice, but I think it turned out well and I'm happy with that. And taking off the chassis, taking off the body, excuse me, I won't really talk about the chassis in detail. If you want to see and hear about the chassis in detail, check out the King Yellow review on my channel. I go more into detail about it. But overall, it's a pretty simple build, especially since the transmission and the chassis are both the same part. It's all integrated into one. So basically, as soon as you have, and then the transmission chassis part is literally just two halves. So just shove the gears in it, put it together, put the 12 screws in, and then you're basically done with the entire chassis and transmission. And then you just basically add the bumpers and the suspension and the arms and the wheels, and you're basically done with the truck. So it's a pretty easy truck to put together. The chassis, I think, is pretty beginner friendly. The body definitely isn't. The chassis, I think, took me like 3 hours to put together. The body took me 5 to 6 hours. So that's something to keep in mind if you're interested in this truck and you're kind of new to kit building or kind of intimidated with the body painting process. But for running gear, the G6-01 Konghead only includes the motor. It doesn't include the ESC like a lot of Tamiya kits do, but I did put in a TBLE02 speed control. I have an Amazon 20 kg Metal Gear servo in here. I'm running my FlySky receiver and my FS GT5 transmitter. And then I also replaced the stock motor with the Tamiya torque tune motor. And I'll probably end up going with a brushless setup or at least a sport tuned because all the gears in it does make the gear reduction pretty heavy on this. So it's not as fast as a lot of people would like. So throwing a little bit faster motor in here might improve the enjoyment of this truck for some people. It does also come with the parts for four-wheel steer, like rear steer, but I didn't put it on this truck because I'm actually going to throw those parts into my Volvo. So this one's just going to be front steer, which is fine. I do have the full ball bearing set for this, so it's going to run nice and smooth. And I still have the stock friction shocks in this. And I don't actually plan on putting oil shocks in this. I kind of like how it drives with the friction shocks. So I'll probably just stick with those. The GF-01 and the WR-02, which are kind of family and related to this chassis, those are a little bit more unstable, so I would recommend oil shocks on those. But because of the number of wheels this thing has, even though the battery is still mounted up pretty up high, and the truck is pretty tall and pretty slow overall, it doesn't actually flip over that much, so I don't really mind the friction shocks, and it doesn't make it feel any less stable. So I'm pretty happy with that, and I think they work pretty well, at least for this application. So pretty happy with that. I also didn't use the stock servo horn. I put on this solid one that came with the servo because on the GF-01 and the G6-01, that servo saver part is pretty notoriously floppy and makes for a pretty loose and sloppy handling characteristic. So I swapped that out. But yeah, that's basically all I've really got to talk about with this thing. I'm just really excited to see this thing move around. So let's actually go outside and see how this thing runs. So we're outside with the Konghead. Unfortunately, the weather isn't as nice as I would like to be. But I'm just way too excited to get this thing driving and just try it out. So I'm just gonna give it a good clean after and just deal with it. But yeah, if you guys have seen my video of the King Yellow driving or the Volvo A60H driving, it's essentially going to drive exactly the same. Maybe a little bit faster just because of the torque tune motor, but otherwise it's going to be essentially the same. So that's top speed right there. It's noticeably faster than the Volvo, and also the King Yellow, but not by much. And it definitely looks really cool driving around. I love watching all the wheels and like suspension moving around. It really looks like a caterpillar or something, the way it's kind of moving around. And even on like a rough lawn surface, it drives really well. It doesn't slow down any. It doesn't have the best ground clearance, but it's enough, and it's smooth enough on the bottom, and as well as having 6-wheel drive really helps it plow through snow and grass, and basically anything you really want to drive through, it'll basically drive through. So that's something that's really neat about the G6-01 chassis. So with that quick little run, it has wet grass all over it. There's nothing I hate more than wet grass. But anyway, I think with the Sport Tune motor, it'll be just perfect for my enjoyment of this truck. But yeah, that was my quick little drive and little overview of my Konghead. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.